Every winter, people talk about the beauty of snow. The soft fall, the way it covers everything and makes the world look clean again. But snow doesn't clean anything. It hides things. It muffles screams. It covers tracks. It shuts down roads, kills phone signals, and turns a normal night into a sealed room, where you don't get to leave until the storm decides you can. And sometimes, the storm isn't the scariest thing outside. Here are 3 true blizzard horror stories that still keep people awake when the wind starts to howl. I used to deliver medical supplies for a small company in northern Minnesota. Not glamorous. Just long drives, strict time windows, and a lot of empty roads. But the pay was good, and I liked being alone. I liked the quiet. That was my mistake. It started as a simple run. A clinic in a town so small it barely showed up on GPS. I'd done it before. 2 hours out, 2 hours back. Easy. I left around 4:30 p.m. The sky was already turning that dark winter blue, like it couldn't wait to be night. The weather report said light snow. Nothing serious. By the time I hit the highway, it was already worse than light. Small flakes at first, then thick ones, like someone was dumping flour from the sky. I turned on the radio. The station kept cutting out, but I caught enough. Winter storm warning, conditions deteriorating, possible whiteout. I remember laughing a little, like, of course the one day I've got this run, it turns into a mess. Still, I kept going. The clinic needed the supplies, and my boss was the kind of guy who acted like weather was a personal excuse. The road out there was mostly straight. Long stretches with trees on both sides. The kind of highway that feels like it goes on forever. Then, the snow got heavy. The wind started pushing my van sideways, like a hand on my shoulder trying to turn me around. I slowed down. Hazards on. White knuckles on the wheel. And then it happened. A shape in the road. At first, I thought it was a deer. Just a dark lump moving in the drifting snow. But as I got closer, my headlights hit it, and my stomach dropped. It was a person. They were standing right in the lane, dead still. I slammed the brakes and swerved, barely missing them. My tires slipped, and for a second, I thought I was going into the ditch. The van corrected just enough for me to straighten out. I looked in the mirror. The person was still standing there, in the middle of the road, staring after me. I pulled over without thinking. I know. In horror stories, you don't stop. But in real life, you do dumb things because you don't understand what's happening yet. I stopped on the shoulder. Wind hitting the van so hard it shook. Snow covering my windshield the moment the wipers slowed. I grabbed my flashlight and stepped out. The cold hit me like a punch. The wind stole my breath. My boots sank into snow that was already climbing up the side of the road. I looked back toward where I'd almost hit them. Nothing. Just snow whipping across asphalt. I walked a few steps anyway, calling out, "Hello? Are you okay?" The wind swallowed my voice. Then I saw footprints. They were leading off the road, into the trees. But the weird thing was, they weren't normal footprints. They looked too deep. Like whoever made them was dragging something heavy. Each step had a long groove after it, like a tail. I told myself it was just the wind messing with the snow. That's what snow does. It lies. Still, I followed them, just a little, shining my flashlight into the trees. The beam caught the trunks, the swirling snow, the black space between branches. And then it caught something else. A reflective strip. Like on a jacket. Or a vest. I pushed forward, branches snapping under my gloves. "Hey!" I yelled again. No answer. The reflective strip moved. And I realized it wasn't a strip on clothing. It was on a pole. Like a road marker. But it was deeper in the trees than any marker should have been. Like someone had pulled it off the roadside and jammed it here. And hanging from that pole was something dark. At first, I thought it was a coat. Just a heavy coat dangling. Then the flashlight beam steadied for half a second, and I saw a hand. A human hand, pale and stiff, hanging out of a sleeve. My brain froze before my body did. That moment when you see something too wrong, and your mind tries to reject it. I stepped closer, slow, like I was afraid the air itself might break. The thing hanging there was a person. Or what used to be a person. Their face was turned slightly toward me. Snow crusted around their eyelashes and lips. Skin gray-blue from cold. And the worst part was, their eyes were open. Not looking at me. Just open. Like they'd been left that way on purpose. I stumbled back, nearly falling. My flashlight swung wildly, and in that swinging beam, I saw more. More poles. More markers. Not official ones. Not evenly spaced. Like someone had made their own trail. And along that trail were shapes. Dark lumps. Half buried. Some hanging. My throat locked up. I couldn't even scream. It felt like my body didn't want to make noise out there. Because I wasn't alone. Something moved behind the nearest trees. A shadow shifting in the storm. At first I thought it was just branches. But it moved against the wind, not with it. I turned and ran back toward the van, boots slipping, lungs burning. Behind me, I heard a sound. Not footsteps. Not crunching snow. A dragging sound. Like something heavy being pulled over ice. I didn't look back. I couldn't. I got to the van, yanked the door open, and threw myself inside. Locked it. Shaking so hard my fingers barely worked. And that's when I noticed something on the passenger side window. A smudge. Like a handprint. But it was on the outside. I stared at it, heart hammering. The print slowly slid down the glass. Not because of melting snow. Because something was moving its hand. I turned my head, just a little, toward the passenger side mirror. There was someone standing right beside my van. So close their shoulder brushed the side panel. I couldn't see their face clearly through the snow, but I could see they weren't dressed for a blizzard. No heavy coat. No hat. Just dark clothing, whipping in the wind like wet paper. And they weren't shivering. They were still. They leaned in toward the passenger window, like they were trying to look inside. And then, softly through the glass, I heard tapping. 1, 2, 3. Like someone politely knocking. I couldn't move. It felt like if I moved, they'd know exactly where I was sitting. Like they could already see me. The tapping moved upward, toward the top of the window. Like their fingers were crawling. Then it stopped. And a voice came through, muffled but clear enough. Turn around. I swallowed hard. My mouth was dry. The voice came again. Turn around. You missed it. I shook my head without meaning to. Just a tiny motion. Then the voice changed. It got closer. Not louder. Closer. You almost hit me. A pause. You should come back. I forced myself to start the van. The engine coughed, then roared. The sound felt too loud in the storm. The person at the window didn't move. I put the van in drive. As I started to pull forward, the person finally stepped back, but not away. They walked alongside the passenger window, keeping pace. Just gliding through the snow. And their heads stayed turned toward me the entire time. Then the storm thickened, and they vanished. I drove the rest of the way to the clinic on pure panic. When I got there, the staff took one look at me and asked what happened. I told them I'd seen someone stranded on the road. They asked where? When I said the mile marker, their faces changed. One of them, an older nurse, just stared at me for a long moment. Then she said quiet, "You saw him?" I asked. "Who?" She hesitated, then said, "They find people out there sometimes. Hanging. Frozen. Like someone put them up like signs." I told her I'd heard a voice. She didn't look surprised. She just nodded slowly, like she'd expected that part. Then she said, "You can't stop out there." I left as soon as I could, even though the storm was getting worse. I didn't want to be anywhere near that stretch of road. On the way back, I didn't see anyone. No shapes. No footprints. Just white. But when I finally got home and parked, I sat there a while, trying to calm down. That's when my phone buzzed. No signal the entire trip, but now I had a voicemail. From an unknown number. I hit play. At first, it was just wind. Static. Then I heard my own voice. From earlier, out in the trees. "Hello? Are you okay?" And right after it, another voice, close to the mic, whispering. "Turn around." I deleted the voicemail. But every winter, when the snow starts coming down hard, I find myself checking my passenger window. Because sometimes, late at night, I'll see a smear on it. Like a handprint that slid down the glass. This happened when I was 19. My best friend Caleb had just gotten his license, and he thought that meant he was invincible. It was January. We just finished finals, and Caleb wanted to celebrate by going up north to his uncle's cabin. A real cabin. Middle of nowhere. No parents. Just us and a couple of other friends. 4 guys total. It sounded like a perfect weekend. We left Friday afternoon. The drive was supposed to be 3 hours. About an hour in, snow started falling. Not too bad. We joked about it. We played music too loud and argued over snacks. Then the road signs started getting farther apart. Then our phones lost signal. Then it started snowing hard enough that even Caleb stopped talking. The sky went gray, like wet cement. The trees on both sides leaned under the weight of snow. We hit a turnoff that Caleb swore was the right one. The GPS had stopped loading maps, but he said he remembered the route. We drove another 20 minutes, and then the road turned into packed snow and dirt. Barely plowed. At that point I said, "We should turn around." Caleb said, "Relax. It's just ahead." That's when the blizzard hit for real. The snow went from falling to attacking. Wind slammed into the car. Visibility dropped so fast it felt like someone threw a sheet over our windshield. Caleb slowed to a crawl. And then we saw something in the road. A gate. Old metal bars, half buried in snow, swung open like someone had left it that way. There was a wooden sign beside it, covered in frost. Caleb leaned forward, squinting. "What does that say?" he asked. I wiped a patch on the window and read it out loud. No trespassing. Under that, in smaller letters, it said something like, Private land. Do not enter. Caleb laughed, but it sounded nervous. Must be the cabin road, he said. I told him, That's not your uncle's sign. He hesitated, then drove through anyway. The road beyond the gate was narrow, lined with trees that twisted inward like they were trying to close behind us. After maybe 5 minutes, the car started sliding. Caleb fought the wheel, but we hit a patch of ice and drifted off the road. Not a crash. Just a soft thunk into snow. Caleb tried to reverse, then forward. Tires spun uselessly. We were stuck. The wind rocked the car. Snow piled up against the doors almost immediately. We tried calling for help. No signal. We tried pushing. The snow was too deep, and the cold burned our lungs. That's when we saw the light. A warm yellow glow, flickering through the trees. A cabin. Not Caleb's uncle's cabin. This one looked older, darker, with a slanted roof heavy with snow. But it was shelter. Caleb said, We'll wait it out there. No one argued. We dragged our bags through waist-deep snow toward the cabin. The closer we got, the stranger it felt. There were no footprints leading to it. No tire tracks. Just untouched snow, except for one thing. A path. A narrow strip where the snow looked thinner, like something had been dragged along it recently. It led right up to the cabin's front door. The door itself was slightly open. Caleb pushed it wider and called, Hello? No answer. Inside, the air was warmer than it should have been. Not cozy warm, but like the place had been holding heat, trapped. It smelled like old wood and something faintly sour. We stepped in. The cabin was one room, with a small kitchen area and a table. A fireplace sat on the far wall, and inside it, embers glowed. Someone had a fire going. Caleb whispered, Okay, someone's here. I called out again, louder. Hello? Our car is stuck. We're not trying to break in. Silence. But the fire crackled like it didn't care. One of our friends, Devin, moved toward the table. On it were 4 mugs. Not dusty. Not old. Steaming. Devin held his hand over one. These are hot. My stomach tightened. Caleb tried to laugh. Maybe they just left. Then we heard it. A sound from the back of the cabin. Not a voice. A slow, wet cough. All 4 of us froze. Then another sound, like something dragging across the floor behind a thin wooden door we hadn't noticed at first. Caleb grabbed a fireplace poker off the wall like he'd seen it in a movie. He said, Who's back there? The dragging stopped. A pause. Then, 3 soft knocks, from the inside of the door. Caleb swallowed. Come out. No movement. We should have run right then. Back into the storm, even. But we were young and stupid, and we still believed logic could fix anything. Caleb walked to the door and yanked it open. It led to a short hallway and another door at the end. The hallway walls were covered in pictures. Not framed. Just pinned up. Old photos. Polaroids. People in snow. People standing by the gate sign. People smiling like they were on a weekend trip. Caleb lifted one with shaking fingers. There were 4 guys in the photo, standing in front of a car stuck in snow. One of them looked exactly like Devin. Same face. Same crooked smile. Devin leaned in and said, That's not me. But his voice cracked like he wasn't sure. We heard the dragging sound again, closer. From behind the door at the end of the hall. Caleb backed up, poker raised. Then the door at the end opened by itself, just a crack. And something inside whispered, low and hoarse. "Come in. It's warmer." No one moved. The voice came again. "You can stay. You're already here." The crack in the door widened. And we saw a face in the dark. At first, it looked like an old man. Then the light from the hallway hit it, and we realized the skin wasn't right. Too pale. Too stretched. The eyes were open too wide, like someone had pulled the lids back. And the mouth smiled, but the lips looked torn, like the skin had split from smiling too much. Caleb shouted and swung the poker at the door. The thing inside didn't flinch. It just whispered, softer now, like it was right beside our ears. "You came through the gate." The hallway suddenly felt colder, like the cabin was losing heat fast. Behind us, the cabin door creaked. We all turned. The front door was closing on its own, slow and steady, like the cabin was taking a breath. Devin ran and tried to shove it open, but it wouldn't budge. He slammed his shoulder into it. Nothing. Then we heard something outside. Footsteps in the snow. Slow. Crunching. Not one set. Many. We looked through the window. Shapes moved in the whiteout. Figures circling the cabin. Too tall. Too thin. They walked like they didn't need to hurry. Like they knew we weren't going anywhere. Caleb yelled, "Open the door!" From the hallway, the whisper answered him. "No. Stay." Then the lights flickered. Not electric lights, there were no bulbs. It was like the fire itself flickered wrong, bending low, starving. The warmth drained out of the room in seconds, replaced by a damp cold that crawled under our clothes. And then, we heard a new sound. A camera shutter. A sharp click. We all jerked our heads toward the wall near the kitchen. There was an old Polaroid camera sitting on a shelf. No one was touching it. It clicked again. Then the camera spit out a photo. It slid out slowly, like the cabin wanted us to see it. Caleb grabbed it without thinking. Shook it like people do. The image formed. It was us. All four of us. Standing in that cabin. Devin screamed and dropped it. Because in the background of the photo, behind us, near the hallway, that thing was standing closer than it had been. Like it was already in the room. We didn't talk after that. We just moved. We grabbed chairs, smashed the window with a leg, and climbed out into the storm. The cold hit like knives, but we didn't care. We ran back the way we came, following our own messy trail. Behind us, we heard the cabin door open. And a voice, not whispering anymore, calling out over the wind. "Don't go. You'll freeze." We made it to the car, half burying ourselves climbing into it through snow. We started it, miracle of miracles. The engine coughed, then ran. Caleb floored it. The tires caught enough to pull us out. We drove blind, following the road by memory and instinct. Eventually, we saw the main highway again, and then lights, and then civilization. We didn't stop until we hit a gas station with people inside. We told the clerk what happened. He looked at us like we were insane, but when we mentioned the gate sign, his face changed. He said, "You boys shouldn't have gone past that." Caleb demanded, "What is that place?" The clerk just shook his head. He said, "There's no cabin out there." Caleb insisted there was. The clerk reached under the counter and pulled out a flyer. "Missing persons. 4 teenagers. A winter trip. Last seen heading north. The photo on the flyer looked exactly like the Polaroids on the cabin wall. I stared at the date. It was from 12 years earlier. We never went back. We never told the full story to police, because how do you explain a cabin that doesn't exist? But the worst part. 2 weeks later, Devin got a letter in the mail. No return address. Inside was a single Polaroid photo. It was a picture of our car on that snowy road. Taken from behind, like someone was standing in the trees watching. And on the back, written in shaky handwriting, were 4 words. Come back when it snows. I worked as a night dispatcher for roadside assistance. People think that job is boring. It isn't. Not in winter. In winter, you get calls from people crying, screaming, whispering like they're afraid to be heard. You get calls from people who aren't making sense because their brains are shutting down from cold. You learn to hear panic like it's a language. This happened during the worst blizzard we'd had in years. Roads shut down. State troopers stretched thin. Tow trucks refusing certain routes because it wasn't worth dying for a paycheck. I came in at 10 p.m. By midnight, the phones were nonstop. Around 1:17 a.m., a call came in that I still think about. The screen showed a no-caller ID. That happens sometimes. But when I answered, the line was dead silent for a few seconds. Then a woman spoke. Her voice was calm, but strained, like she was trying hard not to cry. She said, "I need help." I asked for her location. She paused, then said, "I don't know." That's always bad. I asked if she could see any road signs. Any landmarks. Anything. She said, "It's white. I can't see." I told her to turn on her hazard lights. Stay in the car. Keep the engine running when she could, but not too long if the exhaust was blocked. She whispered, "I'm not in a car." That made my skin prickle. I asked where she was then. She said, "I'm in a phone booth." I almost laughed, not because it was funny, but because it felt impossible. Who's in a phone booth in a blizzard at 1 a.m.? I asked her to describe what she could see. She said, "A road. A field. And a man." My fingers tightened on my pen. "A man where?" She lowered her voice. "He's outside." I asked if the man could help her. Maybe he had a car. She said, "No." Just that. "No." I asked why. Her breathing turned shaky. Then she said, "He's looking at me like I'm food." I sat up straight. I asked her name. She said, "Leah." I asked how she got into the phone booth. She said, "I was driving. I slid off. I walked." I asked where her car was. She said, "I can't find it now." That's another thing winter does. It erases your own path behind you. I told her I was going to call 911 and get an officer out there. I asked her to stay on the line with me. She said, "Okay." Then I heard something in the background. A soft tapping sound. I asked, "What's that?" She whispered, "He's knocking." I swallowed. "On the booth?" "Yes." I told her not to open it. She said, "I'm not." The tapping continued, slow and patient. Then, through the phone line, I heard a voice. Not her. A man's voice, muffled close. "Leah." I froze. I said, "Leah, is someone with you?" She whispered, "No." The man's voice came again, more forceful. "Leah." The tapping became scraping, like fingernails dragging against glass. Leah started breathing faster. He found the booth. I asked her to look at the phone booth, the walls. Any labels, any numbers. Sometimes old highway booths had location codes. She said, "There's writing." I told her to read it. She hesitated. Then she said, "It says, out of order." I felt cold. Because if the booth was out of order, how was she calling me? I didn't say that out loud. I didn't want to scare her more. Instead I said, "Leah, what highway were you on? Do you remember?" She whispered, "I don't know. I just drove until it got bad." The man outside spoke again, clearer now, like his mouth was right at the glass. "Open the door." Leah choked back a sob. "I can't." He laughed. Not loud. Just a breathy sound. Then he said, "You already did." And the line went silent for half a second. Then Leah screamed. Not a normal scream. A short, broken sound, like the air got ripped out of her. I shouted her name, over and over. Finally she gasped, "He's inside." My heart slammed. I said, "How? How is he inside?" She whispered, "He was behind me." I heard shuffling. Like someone moving in a tight space. Then the man spoke again, now not muffled at all. He was right there, on the phone. He said, "You can hang up now." My body went rigid. I said, "Who is this?" He breathed into the receiver. Then he said, "No one will come in this." I tried to keep my voice steady. "Listen, I have your call recorded. The police are on their way." He chuckled softly. Then he said, "She's so warm." And Leah made a small sound in the background, like she was trying to breathe quietly. I slammed the transfer button to 911, tried to patch them in, tried to trace the call. The system showed nothing. No location. Just blank. I went back to Leah's line. I said, "Leah, can you hear me?" A pause. Then Leah whispered, so faint I almost didn't catch it. "He's not a man." The man laughed again. Then the sound changed. It sounded like chewing. Slow. Wet. I felt like I was going to throw up. I yelled, "Leah! Run! Get out of the booth!" But she didn't answer. The chewing continued. Then the man spoke, mouth full, voice thick. She shouldn't have stopped. And the line went dead. I sat there staring at the phone like it had bitten me. I called 911 anyway, gave them everything I had, time of call, what she said, the mention of a phone booth, a field, a road. They searched where they could, but the storm was too strong. They couldn't cover everything. 2 days later, after the blizzard passed, a state trooper came to our office. He wanted the recording. He told me they'd found a phone booth off an old county road. One of those booths that hadn't worked in years but never got removed. They found it half buried in snow. The glass was scratched up from the inside. Like someone had tried to claw their way out. But there were no footprints leading to it. None leaving it either. And inside the booth, they found the phone hanging off the hook. The cord was cut. Cleanly. Like something sharp had sliced it. No body. No blood. Just one thing. A single glove. Frozen stiff. And on the inside of the glass, fogged into the frost, there were words, like someone had written them with a fingertip, while their breath still worked. 5 words. He was behind me first. After that I quit. I couldn't sit in that chair and listen to people trapped in storms anymore. But sometimes, late at night, I'll get a call from no caller ID. I don't answer. Because I swear, on those nights, I can hear tapping. Not on the phone. On my window. Which story scared you the most? Comment below and subscribe for more true horror stories.